Get ready for real time, prime time, big time, show time. It's edible honesty time. And in the meantime, get ready for your favorite partner in crime, your host, one of the greatest talkers of all time, the king of edible honesty, the eighth wonder of the world, Andrew the Giant.
Hey, my. Hot rockin' tomato pie? Let's get down. Let's talk about the ins and outs of the food industry. My name is Andrew. I'm your host, and I am ready to rock. So let's cut right into it because today we will be readjusting almost everything you thought you knew about food. Now, in last week's edible adventure, we saw Andrew the Giant delve into obscure, edible legal history as we witnessed him travel through time in a phone booth to New York, to the lower courts, Nix versus Hedden, to the year 1887, as Andrew the Giant traveled back in time to witness the lower courts of New York play a deadly game with Boss Croker and Tammany Hall called Hump or Death. And as a consequence, the lower New York courts legally changed the status of tomatoes from fruits to vegetables. But how? Did Jesus perform another miracle? Many questions remain unanswered. Like, is this the man who crashed through Victor Maitland's window? And is this the man who disabled an unmarked unit with a banana? Well, one Supreme Court judge is already missing the tip of his baby left toe. And the judicial walls of the New York lower courts are slathered in Vaseline and blood. So I guess that pretty much rules out Jesus. But hang on to your edible honesty hats, because the best is yet to come. And remember, edible honesty fans, the arc of the moral universe is very long. But in the United States Supreme Court, it always bends towards injustice. And it's good to sleep on a mattress stuffed with tomato cash. So, why did the tomato cross the road? Listen, the fact that you are even at all concerned that the tomato crossed the road reveals your underlying sexual insecurity, Sigmund Freud. So then, what came first? The tomato or the road? Who cares? We don't in the United States Supreme Court, so long as we can tax them both. Now, our story begins in the year 1893, and Nix versus Hedden has finally reached the United States Supreme Court. And at that time, in the year 1893, the presidency was at an all-time low in terms of its power and its influence. Meanwhile, at the halls of justice, Congress was rife with corruption and at an all-time high in terms of its power and influence. And the judiciary, why, they were even more corrupt and even more powerful than Congress. So now, here is how in the wide world of sports Taggart, this whole tomato, is it a non-taxable fruit or is it a taxable vegetable? Great debate, better known as Nix versus Hedden, started in the very first place because the year was 1872 and syphilis was a popular tooth polish. And now here is the critical part. A comma accidentally replaced a hyphen in the Tariff Act of 1872. Now, this probably seems insignificant. A comma accidentally replacing a hyphen. However, that little, super tiny, almost completely unnoticeable grammatical error ended up costing the United States government a huge chunk of change. But I'll get back to that momentarily. So now, for some proper historical perspective, tariffs, or a tax imposed on imported goods, are the oldest kind of taxes collected in the United States, period. And the very first tariff was enacted in the year 1789. And it was signed into law by our President George Washington. And ever since then, since the year 1789, the United States federal government has used these tariffs to support 95% of its federal budget. So now, we'll head back in time. It's the year 1872. And President Grant just signed the 13th Tariff Act into law. However, there was a very small, very, very small, free list of items exempt from taxation upon entry into the United States. Because prior to this very, very small free list, the Tariff Act of 1870 usuriously taxed the hell out of fruits, as fruits like oranges, lemons, pineapples, and the like were taxed at 20%. So holy 20% fruit tax, Batman. Now, technically, the Tariff Act of 1872 did not repeal the Tariff Act of 1870. However, there were some genius fruit importers who discovered that since the word fruit was separated by a comma and not a hyphen, it grammatically meant that all fruits and all fruit plants imported into the United States were now actually non-taxable and were therefore now part of the coveted very small free list. And you know what? Grammatically speaking, those fruit importers were 100% correct. And so, the fruit importers began suing for fruit taxes paid under protest. And the fruit importers won every single case. And the United States government was actually forced to issue back just over $2 million in refunds to the fruit importers for taxes paid under protest. Which, fun fact, that $2 million actually amounted to a grand total of 1.3% of America's total profit from tariffs. And so, to avoid further lawsuits and to avoid further refunds, in 1874, the United States government simply made all imported fruit free. So, why did the tomato cross the road? To die. In the rain. Broke. Beaten. Alone. Ernest Hemingway. Now, that being said, the United States government definitely does not enjoy giving its money back. And ever since they did, ever since the United States government gave 1.3% of their total take back to fruit importers, well, let's just say they had been looking for a way to make that money back and get even with the fruit importers, and big time. But how? Because payback is a bitch, and cocaine is a hell of a drug. So get ready for the fight of the century, and get ready to play America's favorite game, Hump or Death. Because it's time. It's time for the main event. Yeah, baby. It's Knicks versus Hedden. So, for the thousands in attendance And for the millions listening around the world, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Edible Honesty Studio in Edible Honesty Wonderland, let's get ready to rumble. Now, in the year 1893, when Nix versus Hedden was to be heard by the United States Supreme Court, America was so disgustingly corrupt that Jimmy Cagney was overheard saying to Mickey Mouse, "You dirty rat." So, hey, Judge, nice day today. Say, how long have you been sitting on the Supreme Court anyway? Well, I was just appointed a few days ago. Really? Has it been that long? Wow, that's great. Well, I guess it's time for you to play America's favorite game, Hump or Death. So, Judge, let's cut to the chase. Because you only have 10 seconds to decide. So what'll it be? Hump or Death? Hump or Death? 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, all right. Hump. Great choice, Judge. Say, did you see that Bears game last week? Yeah. Hell of a game. Moon River, wider than a mile. Now, let me take a crack at this Fetzer valve. You dirty rat. And that is seriously how it pretty much went down in the United States Supreme Court in the year 1893. Because the unfettered corruption of a post-apocalyptic Civil War American society was so rampant in American politics that it simply became the rule and the unwritten law of the land. And back in the year 1893, those who attempted to put an end to all of that political corruption, well, let's just say that they were the few judges and politicians who unfortunately didn't choose Hump, and we all know how that goes. Your hammer hit my head. No, your head hit my hammer. And hey, what are you doing? Leave the hammer. Take the cannolis. So holy Godfather reference, Batman. So that's it. That's a wrap on part 1 of the missing chapter of the day the Supreme Court turned fruits into vegetables. But ask yourself one question. Ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight? Because part 2 of the missing chapter of the day the Supreme Court turned fruits into vegetables is about to start right now. My name is Andrew. I thank you so much for listening. And to all my fans out there in Toronto, go Raptors. And an enormous, edible shout out to my favorite farmer in the United States of America, Goyo, over at JR Organics in Escondido, California. And let me just put it to you straight. JR Organics grows the best heirloom tomatoes I have ever had anywhere, period. The attention that they pay to the seeds that they select, the lineage, the history, you can taste it in every single bite. And I'm talking generations of flavor that you just feel rushing over you. So do yourself a favor. Call Goyo, get on the website, jorganics.com, and get yourself as many tomatoes as you can possibly buy. Because they only grow real tomatoes. And you're very lucky to be able to eat something that delicious. And an enormous edible shout out to Burt Ward, the best Robin ever. And Burt, just so you know, you have an outstanding invitation to be a guest right here on Edible Honesty so you and I can discuss food fit for a superhero. So holy Burt Ward, Batman. And I'd be getting all your calls. and all your emails and your comments, and thank you, and all your recipes, and send me some of your favorite tomato recipes again, please. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and Podchaser. And if you want to send those recipes, you send everything over to me at info@ediblehonesty.com. And no, I am not signed by any media outlet yet. And History Channel, Food Network, Cooking Channel, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, whoever else, I'm available. So get in contact with me and let's work out a deal, and let's get Edible Honesty what it deserves. A syndicated platform. So get ready to tune in for the next episode for more Edible Honesty. Same edible time, same edible station.